let me have the pleasure of introducing our guest to all of our August audience. She has extensive leadership experience in driving the organization growth agenda and enabling business. Why she also has a wide and rich experience in the areas of business strategy, developing consumer propositions, digital and data-driven marketing, change management, and go-to-market strategy across diverse service sectors. In the areas of BFSI, telecom, and education, she has the ability to ideate, drive, and implement. As a trained coach, she prides herself in the ability of creating a towards state culture and winning teams. She is currently heading marketing, communication, and digital sales at ManipalCigna Health Insurance. And this role encompasses leading marketing strategy, brand and product marketing, digital marketing, customer experience, channel marketing, public relations, and direct digital P&L. In the past, she has worked with ING Life Insurance, BPL Mobile, Indian School of Business, and the legendary O&A, Ogilvy and Method Advertising, as it to be called, across marketing and business development roles. She has proven ability to strategize, build, and manage brands to compete successfully in the marketplace. She has played a key role in the launch of two startup operations, ING Life Insurance and Cigna TTK Health Insurance, and one brand transition. She has received a lot of awards, but for want of time, I'm just reading with her permission some of the awards that she has received. And she is recognized as a Pitch CMO of the year 2022. And she's also recognized as the most talented marketing professional in financial services. And she also recognized as among 100 most influential marketing leaders in the country. And she is also recognized as the most talented healthcare professional. And she's also on the advisory board member and the jury member for various events. And she's on the APAC IFI bronze she has won the APAC IFI bronze for marketing effectiveness 2020 and 2021. And most importantly, she shares her expertise and experience with different learners like you. And she has been a guest lecturer at IIM Calcutta, NMIMS, MET, and other institutions. And she's going to talk to us on very, very interesting topic called is timeless marketing. And I'm sure those of you from marketing, even otherwise, and you will have great insights from this lecture to ensure that how do we craft or articulate some of these narratives that can make sure that your brand stays for generations and generations. Over to you, Sapna.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Nagendra Chaudhary. And a warm welcome to everybody. I mean, it's really a pleasure to be here with everybody today on this learning experience. So just before we start, I wanted to kind of, set the tone for the conversation today. As Dr. Nagendra shared, I have around 20 years of marketing practice experience. So I'm happy and willing to kind of share that with you. And also, I think towards the end of the session, would love to have a conversation. So, I really use these opportunities not only to share experience, but also take away learnings. So, really happy to engage, during the session, post the session, on LinkedIn and otherwise to kind of talk about our experiences together. Yeah. So with that, I want to just step into, what we're going to be talking about today. And before I really get started on this, I just wanted to draw, and the topic for today is really about timeless marketing and consistency. And we are living in a generation of trends, and everybody's talking about what's your next viral campaign, organic reach. So that's the kind of two worlds that we are living in. I think really how are they interlinked, and how do you kind of build something that lasts? So while I spoke about my marketing experience, I'm also a mother, and I'm a runner, and I'm a leadership coach too. So from my running experience, really I think it's about how you train for a sprint vis-a-vis how you train for a marathon. And if there are runners in this group, you will kind of understand what it takes to be a marathon runner and an ultra runner vis-a-vis doing a 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers sprint, both equally important and need to go together, but different experiences. So with that, let's kind of get started with some of the session. Let's move to the next slide. And feel free to, kind of as I talk about, I would have loved to do this in person because, that works well with me. But in this kind of a format, do, keep the chat alive. While I'm talking about the topic, would love to kind of hear your views, your examples, because, marketing is something everybody is, there is theory to it and there is experiences that we can talk about and put frameworks to it. But I'm sure you'll have your own stories to tell. So would love to hear those stories too and let them flow in the chat. And we'll pick them up towards the end of the session. Yeah, so, so I did talk about it, right? Now, trendy marketing and timeless marketing. I mean, that's the two ways to kind of look at it. Because, many times marketers sitting today kind of keep wondering, what kind of a strategy should I adopt? Is this going to get me the kind of return on my investments? Is the board going to kind of see this in the right light? And, how am I going to ultimately add more value to the business and the brand that I'm building? I think these are the questions that a marketer is faced, on an everyday basis. So let's talk a little bit about this. So, let's kind of talk about what's like the trendy marketing or the trend, follow the trends. And especially with the onset of, social media. And I mean, not onset now, we're living in it, right? You used to have, storytelling was the whole thing on content. Now more and more is story living. You have to talk about your experiences. And if beginning of the year itself, we had that whole trend of Blinkit and Zomato. And I'm sure, the number of every single brand and a marketing team, got in and stepped on it. And I think I've also written something on my LinkedIn on that topic. And it was such a beautiful collaborative effort. So, I mean, there are trends, there are festivals, the way you're kind of getting and stepping into it talks about the creativity, and some things really, give you that high. And, it's something that you need to kind of do. It's not that, you don't do those things. But what a timeless kind of a strategy is that the core message of the brand, the value, that we talk about, it's like a human, ultimately what is marketing? Marketing is the art of influencing another human. I mean, that's the way I kind of really talk about marketing because I'm also interested in psychology and I, as a leadership, from that perspective, also it's all about the art of influence. And if you really think about it that way, you're talking to a human being and not to a robot. So you got to kind of play that role as a marketer. So while you kind of look at the trends, events, and fads, but you do it with your central value system intact. So if you remember, and many of you are in the field or would have been conscious of it. I'm taking that example because it was quite recent. Everybody stepped into this whole trend, but with their kind of a core value message. Various brands talked about their brand mission, vision, and then connected it with the trend. So I think that was that was a nice example. Now, if I move to the second point, when you look at a brand that's kind of only doing one thing, which is just the trends and viral, that you're looking for the next big thing. It's a little short term in nature. And if you really want to build something that lasts, I think what's very important is the the trust and endurance, and same thing as running a marathon. So it's about endurance. It's not about reaching that finishing line only at that time, but it's crossing much more distance. So you need to have a brand that is able to take in the various things that come along the way. So and we can talk about it in another lecture, but what a brand really does is about giving that cushion to a business, and how brands really help business, because you're giving the business a cushion for something that happens. If something goes wrong, consumers should be able to give that brand the resilience to come back. So, and that's the endurance and that's the trust. That's really very valuable. Yeah. So we would love to hear, your thoughts on this topic, and maybe in the chat, if you can just talk to me about, which brand do you feel that you can really forgive? If one mistake happens, that's fine. I'm fine to forgive this brand because overall I trust this brand. It could be an Amazon, it could be, say, Starbucks. You're willing to let go of one thing that goes wrong because over a period of time, you've experienced a consistent, experience. So would love to hear from you. Please just put down the names of brands that you think do this, that has a trust in your mind. Yeah. So the next point I really want you to think about is that, while a trend, yeah, Balaji, right? Tata is one such brand, right? Thanks. It makes me feel you're listening and I have an audience on the other side. So great. Yeah, Tata is one such brand. Big Basket, I think, uh, let's talk about it. Not it definitely has endurance, but does it have that high level of trust that I'm going to let go of one mistake? Is it the Amazon yet? So that's the question. Yeah, keep that flowing. Let me just talk about another thought for you. Um, I think I spoke about long term, short term. I think you're getting that, and you've got that point. What's very beautiful about the viral or the trend thing is that it surprises you. So while when we talk about consistency and timelessness, you can't become a boring brand, right? So you need to kind of keep the novelty and the surprises and the nuances of the current, the relatability, let me put it. I think the key word here is relatable. How relatable is your message? Are you able to kind of connect with the audience in the present? So even though you are a timeless brand, you have to connect in the present. I think a great example of that is, say, Google, right? You kind of look at the imagery, look at the moment, look at the whole portfolio of that brand, be it the different products that they have, and how they are able to bring the connection and the newness in along with the consistency. Be it Google Maps or be it a Google Drive or Google Search, they kind of do that beautifully. So I think that's another point. And more and more in today's world, and there's a lot of talk about that, and there's a lot of literature also available. Thanks, Pranav. Keep that going. Thing is about being authentic. So the other brands I like you to kind of also put down there are which are the brands that you kind of see as authentic and genuine brands, and not somebody who's here today and will leave you tomorrow. So which are those kind of brands in your mind? Which are the the authentic, the trustworthy, the consistent, the reliable? So let's kind of talk about those, and please share them on the chat. At the same time, think about some brands and Dabur, yes, Dipesh. And I want you guys to also think about some brands which are high on the trend and high on the virality of it. So let's kind of, Amul is a great example, great Indian example, and I was going to talk about Amul on how they have done, this timeless, consistent marketing. Maruti is another. Yes, guys. So I think you all are getting into it. Cred. Okay, yes. I just saw something on chat. A great point to pick up. And I want you to think about this now. Let's kind of hold on to the Amazon again. I'm assuming you're talking about the timeless. Let's hold on to this and kind of talk to me about and share with me your thoughts on which brands you see as they capture your interest. Very exciting brand. Give you that adrenaline rush. There with you, you like them, but after 1 week, you don't care if they're there in your life or not. It's really about that fling. I mean, if I would take it to another example, I talked to you about a marathon and a sprint. It's either about a fling and a relationship. Yeah. So talk to me about those brands. Somebody kind of talked about Cred being one such brand. Trendy advertising. High spend for that. But is it somebody that you can think is really authentic? or is it, do they have a risk of being perceived as inauthentic? And that's my question to you, really. So, that's the story. So please do share some examples of some brands that you feel are trendy, are viral, but perhaps not that authentic. Yeah, so keep that going, and just mark them up trendy and timeless as you kind of share the examples, because we won't know what you're kind of sharing otherwise. Um, okay, Apple, I'm assuming, is timeless, right? Okay, let's move to the next slide, Dr. Nagendra. Okay, so I think I kind of established the whole concept, with this group, I'm hoping. Yeah. So now I think this is a very important point to understand. Ultimately, as marketeers, what's our role? The way I see my role, for example, in any of the businesses that I have led and been part of, is to really enable growth. Okay, a marketeer is best able to enable that growth, give that competitive advantage to the business. Build that relationship with consumers, be the customer's voice in the organization. Influence, I think the key word is influence the different products, services, and today's age, the experience that your consumers get. Yeah, so I think, that's really how, I would say, and most of the people that I talk to about marketing, define a marketing brand role. And of course, advertising, communication, and all the glamorous things are part of it. But you're really kind of enabling the business goals of growth and relationship and loyalty. The consumer loyalty, so that you actually get a value on that business. The brand has a value, ultimately your P&L. Yeah, so that's what you should kind of think about. Now, if I keep that thought in your mind, how does consistency help, right? A business is not just for a year, 2 year, right? It's a 5 year game. It's a long. There are brands and businesses for hundreds of years. For example, Coca-Cola has maintained the brand identity for over 100 years. I mean, imagine that, 100 years, right? So, that's again, Apple, really another great example. Nike, long term, old brands, McDonald's, right? It's an age old brand. So, also, this helps you have a brand identity, LIC. Yeah, it's an interesting brand to think about. Okay, so really, I think it helps build that brand identity. When you visualize it, when you look at it, you know that you can identify the brand. It's memorable. It's recognizable. I think that's why consistency is very important, because it helps build that brand identity. Vis-a-vis, there's a whole new theory, especially with the onset of social, and that if you just maintain the brand identity, it gets boring. And so how do you kind of, again, have a kind of a brand palette that allows you to, while keep your brand identity, but allows you a little bit of experimentation in colors and so on. Again, I think Google does that brilliantly. Yeah, so it allows that experimentation, but the core brand identity is consistent, right? Um, hmm, yeah, we'll talk about that again, Balaji, when in the Q&A. Right. And the other point is, Dr. Nagendra has a point. What was that? I missed that. Consistency without product service performance might just be a hollow brand promise. What needs to be consistent? Is it the brand promise that needs to be consistent, and therefore the marketing communication too? Absolutely. That's the very well articulated. And let me talk about it right away instead of towards the end. Really, I think it's about when I'm talking about of course, on this slide is really about the brand identity and the logo and the communication, because that's what's visible. That's what differentiates your brand from competition. And also, consistency gives a firm foundation, from where you can evolve and align your marketing strategy with the organization's business goals. So as the business goals move, you need to move, align, and still stay consistent. And so it's not that easy as this sounds. Okay, at one end, it sounds like, okay, you have to be consistent, but you have to be consistent while you're evolving. So now that's the trick, right? Your values, your offering to your customer proposition, right? If, for example, I'm talking about that, the customer is always right, or the customer has to have that kind of an experience, I need to really ensure that kind of an experience over a period of time. Yeah, so I think that's like the trick of the game. And of course, I mean, a brand without according to me, honestly, the brand is the entire thing. It's the service, it's the product, it's the communication, it's the loyalty, it's really a lot of things. So brand is ultimately the what a consumer thinks of your product, and he's not remembering only what I'm saying. So communication is just one aspect to it. The brand is the whole experience that a consumer kind of feels. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so now let's kind of step a little back and try to understand some principles. If I had to give you, and I think it's also connected to the previous questions, so of course, there are going to be three things in consistency and timeless marketing. One is the brand consistency, which is maybe the look, the logo, the tone of voice, color scheme, etc., across all the channels. So, be it your consumer communication, your internal communication, your external communication. The way, suppose it's a brand that is kind of, a packaged brand, how you're going to be able to put that on the cover of your package, everything. So that has like, what we call the brand consistency. The second point in this is the message consistency, which is, if I'm talking about a brand that is consistent with its values, mission, and vision, let me talk to you about a brand that I currently, lead. So it's the Cigna Global is a health insurance company. And the mission is really to improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind of those we serve. So it's like a beautiful thought, right? To improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind of those we serve. And that mission, that brand or the corporate mission actually aligns, and that's how you kind of lead the products that you make, the service that you give. So so the fact that you want to underwrite at start and not towards the end, the fact that your claims should be easy, the fact that your product should have benefits of wellness, all starts stemming from the messaging, from the brand thought of the values and the mission and the vision. Also, another aspect of it is the messaging should be clear and concise. Let's not complicate it. Let's keep it simple. Let's be precise, because that's how you're going to be really honest and authentic. This is what I promise you. This is how I will promise to deliver it to you. So what are the three principles we spoke about? The brand consistency. I think everybody does get that. The marketing consistency, and the third very important point is the experience consistency. I would like to see some examples of brands that people that you can kind of expect that this is the experience I will get from this brand. I know that if this is a product that I have bought, tomorrow if I buy another product from this brand, I am sure I will get that experience. Airtel, I mean, I'm thinking about it. I'm not too sure. I would like to see a few more examples. And I think this is a very easy one. I mean, and I want to kind of see the example so that you understand what I'm trying to talk about, and also kind of connect it to Dr. Nagendra's question. Yeah, so just think about a brand that, when you're kind of lost and that, if I go here, this is the kind of experience I'm going to get. I'll keep waiting. And also, this customer experience should be, this is the experience that I'm going to get if I talk to it through the call center, if I go to the, website, or if I go through some other channel, I'm going to get the similar kind of experience. So brand consistency, message consistency, and experience consistency, all slightly different. I just want to kind of get to that. Brand consistency, if you want to simplify it, is the look or the image or the packaging. Amex, yeah, could be another example. Message consistency is your core thought. Many times you mistake it with the tagline, but it could be the tagline. So for the Nike, just do it. That could be message consistency, because they're talking about empowerment, or Yeah, so I'm understanding many people are, putting the names. So yeah, sure, continue doing that. Yeah, and experience consistency are brands that you know that if you walk into this, I'm giving you a clue here. And I walk into this place and I know I'm going to get the same. Uh, Times of India, good example of brand consistency. Yeah. Okay, so I'm still looking for that example of experience consistency, folks. So please keep that guessing. Yeah. So and I think this is very very simple. So um, looking for those examples. Okay, let's move to the next. Yeah, okay. Somebody says Starbucks. Thank you so much. Okay, Dr. Duggan. Yes. So, that's so correct. So, like, for example, and I think McDonald's is the other one. Absolutely right. So, in any other country, so if you're traveling out, you don't know what you want to eat, or, the first time you're entering a place, you tend to navigate towards brands that even if, you're outside your own comfort zone, but if you walk into that store, you feel at home, you know. So that's like the experience consistency, be it a different culture, a different place, a different time zone, you still feel that sense of comfort, so the sense of comfort that you walk into, a McDonald's, or the sense of comfort that you walk into a Starbucks, you know what to expect, you know what's going to happen, you know what they're going to tell you, and you know that the experience won't go negative. So it's like a very safe choice. So a McDonald's or a Starbucks, you know what you're going to get. So I think that's really good example. And that experience is just not about the brand or the message. It's really about each and every touch point being consistent. And that's not something that just happens. I mean, that's something that they're trained for. There's something that they measure. There's something that is developed as a culture. Uh, and a very very strong value that the brand starts then giving to the business. So that's when like a marketer can really kind of say that I'm impacting the business, when you start kind of managing the experience consistency. Yes, so kind of let's move to the next slide. Okay, so I want to take this like a little bit of a different thought I want to leave with you. So we've talked about this, and we've talked about how, the marketing, what is consistency, how does consistency help a business, what are the types of, timeless consistency and timeless approaches that, we do. So I think we've kind of touched upon those topics. Another topic that I kind of really, more and more advocate every time I speak to people is really what is marketing today? It's both in art and in science. And again, I want you to give me an example of a brand that merges this together. Yeah. So, a brand that is able to, so like how you say in psychology, right? Your right brain typically is supposed to be the creative brain, where you have the intuition, and then you have the rational, data based, research based brands, which a lot of marketing is now really becoming, and a lot of, I'm telling you, in the last recent 2-3 years, the amount of data based campaigns we've run is quite amazing, especially with the the performance marketing part of business. Yeah, so it's becoming both an art and science. P&G and HUL, yes, many of their brands, it's really about merging art, science, bringing it together, and there is, of course, because of technology. Technology is really making this happen. Uh, Apple, true again. And another brand that I want to kind of talk to you about and make this a little quicker is actually Starbucks. So Starbucks, we all spoke about the art of Starbucks, right? About the image, the walking in, the experience, and everything is very very consistent. But the Starbucks also collects a lot of data, and based on the transactions, the consumer history, they run campaigns, the loyalty programs, the app that they have, is very big. It's all about science. It's all about the data that they are getting from that experience of the consumer that have walked into their own stores, and how then they are doing the packaging, how they are doing the sizing, the pricing, all all based on the data that Taj is another good example. Asian Paints, yes, thank you for that. Yeah, but I want you to also think about this topic and maybe I want to broaden this topic here a bit. Is that give me examples of a campaign that has kind of used science and brought it to the market beautifully, really. So I'm actually shifting the gear here a bit, uh, because it's a very important topic. Maybe again another something we spend more time on at some other time. But I think for a timeless marketing, you have to be able to shift gears or blend gears between communication, art, visual, and data, which is based on research, analytics, testing, effectiveness, and data-based decisions. Yeah, so it's a balance between these three areas. Okay, let's kind of keep that going. Next slide, Dr. Nagin. Okay, so we spoke about that. Now, what more does it really? I think these are it's a little heavy slide. Uh, yes, okay, I do want to stop here because I saw an example. Yeah, the SRK campaign promoting local retailers. Yes, I'm glad you picked that up, Dan. And if in a normal situation, I could have asked you to speak about it, but let me do that for you, and I think everybody will connect to that example. So Cadbury as a brand is a beautifully art-driven brand, right? Very consistent. Key values are there. The packaging very visually. It's a Cadbury ad. Be it the music, be it the colors. These are all semiotics. So when we were in Ogilvy or in advertising, you call the semiotics in a campaign. Very important to keep that intact. In this campaign that Dan Raj talking about is that basis data, you kind of took that messaging and really personalized it to a person, to a local retailer. Yeah, so good example. Thank you for that. So I'm moving on to this topic. Uh, what does it take to create a timeless marketing narrative? And I want you guys to think about that. I have put some points on this slide, but I want you to kind of absorb that and tell me, how you read it. Let me just talk about it a bit, but I want you to, simultaneously think about it, because as I said, this is more of what I want. More you think and you absorb, you will kind of keep this within you and you will learn more. So think about this, okay? So what does it really take? Okay, so we heard it all, right? We heard we need to be consistent, art and science, about the experience, all of it. So how do we really, do that? I think they're very simple points, but each of them, have nuances, and we'll see how much we can touch upon it. So I think the key part is that, who are you really creating for? Who is your audience? And, what are their needs, wants, pain points? What is the buyer or the personas that you are kind of creating for, right? And, how do you really guide? How does that knowledge guide your action, guide your brand behavior? Yeah, so understand the audience, because more and more, and all of us are consumers, right? Our expectations are now at the very high. We want all brands to know us, understand us, and make life easier for us, right? So we expect them to know, and because we get it from brand A, if we don't get it from brand B, we are like, oh, this is not done. Yeah, so become a very competitive world out there for marketeers. So to stand out, you have to have a constant, and this is not a one-time effort. I mean, this is a constant effort, because your audiences are also constantly changing. So you need to, sorry, can we go back to the previous? Yeah, thank you. So you need to understand your audience through data, use intuition, go out, meet people, walk into the stores, sell yourself, multiple ways. So you need to really not, you can't afford to not understand your audience anymore. Yeah, and it has to be continuous. Okay, now the second point, and I think somebody mentioned emotional connect, right? I think it's important because, I mean, okay, maybe for timeless marketing, emotions are also important, but I would also urge you to think about how, the value-based benefit also could appeal. So emotional, value-based, it could be both, or it could be a blend of the two. Yeah. So understand your audience to know what they want you to kind of, what is the proposition that you need to give them and how you want to give them, and ultimately build a relationship. The point too is that, and many brands will tell you, and I'm sure many of the sessions that you've attended, keep it simple and authentic. But more and more, this is becoming very important, because I think it's about being, especially, in this post-COVID era. And I'm telling you how it's like, people really trust brands that stay with them, that are genuine narratives, and they're very easily able to kind of shift the two. So, the gimmicks, the jargons, which you could do earlier, at this price, get this, at that price, get that. Really, I think people have been able to see through them. And to an extent, you end up alienating your audiences. So, it's really important to keep your message, no gimmicks, no false promises, because ultimately it's not going to really last you. So this, do this in 2 minutes, and you don't do it, it's like the worst thing that you could do. So that's like harakiri. So keep it simple, be authentic. The third point is that, especially if you're looking at a timeless marketing narrative, you need to look and you need to have a vision. And, coming from that, the business and the management needs to have a vision of focusing on the big picture. So, it's not only about what you're building for today. And that's why many of these brands are actually built by, people who kind of have a stake in the business, who are able to see beyond and focus on the big picture, what the brand stands for, and how do you want to impact the world? So purpose-driven brands. So give me some examples that, you really feel are brands that have a purpose, that you feel they want to make a change, impact the world. And, and not today, I mean, for a period of time. So just think about that, and, would love to see some of your examples or any campaigns too. Like, it could be Cadbury doing something for a purpose, or, because I think you guys have talked about a lot of brands now. So would love to hear now what are a specific campaign that you feel a brand did, during COVID, post COVID, which was really not about that moment, but future. And, it's not just that I had to get something out of that transaction. I was not about a sale, 20% off, 30% off, buy this at the price of a popcorn. But I did this because, it was a longer purpose. Let me give you an example of the brand that I handle. So during COVID, we talked about, just getting out there and talking to people. So Baat Kiji, and that got us a lot of, it was about talking to people about, instead of just, and again, mental wellness, another, brand that kind of talks about that, about how important it is to kind of speak about it, talk about it in healthcare. So, narratives like that. Okay, going on to the fourth point, I think it's very, very important in, how you tell that story. People remember stories, not facts and figures. Use storytelling techniques. So I think that's kind of emphasize on storytelling. How are you going to really get that story out there? And, create a consistent brand of voice. So I'm sure, brands, I mean, many brands that I've worked on, so Apple, maybe be it Google, or, Amul, for example, they'll have a brand pyramid or a brand, framework, which is consistent and, talks about the brand's tonality. So be it that I'm going to be warm, I'm going to be conversational, I'm not going to be preachy. So these are words that you write down that really define a brand's character. There are many, many frameworks for this, and each brand has a different framework that they follow over a period of time. Yeah. So, but, you will have words written like, empowerment, or I will, be genuine. I will, do that. So I will change. So how are you really changing the consumer's world? What is the role that you're going to play in the consumer's world, and what is that brand voice? So I think this is very important, these 5 topics. So how do you create that brand voice? How do you tell that story? what is the larger purpose that a brand is really fulfilling. So, so for example, I think somebody's talked about Lakme. So think about what is the purpose that Lakme is really fulfilling. What could that be? And once you have that in your mind as a marketer, every campaign that you do kind of connects back to that purpose. It could be a different storytelling, but the purpose and the narrative uh, kind of is central. And how do you keep it simple and authentic? Okay, and of course, who is your audience? Yeah, so we could talk about a lot on this slide, but I'm going to move on and leave this with you. Would love you to kind of go deep, think about it, read more, and look at examples that kind of make this come alive for you. Yeah, so let's go to the next slide. I think we're running late on time. Okay, so okay, so now I think we've spoken a lot about various examples and various topics. Why is timeless marketing really something that we should think about? Because as I said, that in a long run, it is essential for a sustainable business. You don't want a brand that's here with you today and tomorrow the value just depletes. So if you're creating value, you need to kind of focus on strategies and approaches that build that in the long run. Marketing trends can come and go, but timeless marketing strategies are essential for business. I think the second point is it builds a lasting connection. It provides that cushion. Okay, you're creating value, you're building trust, and you're delivering a consistent experience. And by focusing on long-term relationships, you can build a loyal consumer base. And again, from a business point of view, it adds to your bottom line. Repeat customers. You can charge a price premium. Multiple other things. So, very, very important. I think we've spoken about it, so we can move to the next slide. Okay, so again, I think this is, when we spoke about trends, while they're important, and again, as I said, while you're consistent, you need to play with the trends, be relevant. So I'm not saying, you don't kind of do that, but not only focus on that, because, what happens is that if you're going to keep evolving and changing your image, a downside of that, so there's some of the downsides is that you dilute your brand identity and confuse your audience. So give me some examples of brands that kind of confuse you. Yeah, so you've seen them in multiple formats, but it just adds to the confusion. So just think about some brands, share some names of some brands that that kind of really confuse you. Okay, what are they trying to say? I saw this about them the last time, but today something else. So maybe they don't even come to your mind because they don't get so established. But if you do name some examples of brands that just think of the keyword confuse you. How are you kind of looking at that brand? What's confusing about it? Yeah, so just think about that too, and we'd love to hear your examples. Yeah, so let's move ahead. Okay, I want to spend some time on this slide. It's a little again, I'm kind of shifting gears a little bit here, but I want you to get to the concept of how timeless marketing and what's the evolution of marketing, right? So if you really look at marketing, as I've told you, kind of is creating value. It's helping you differentiate your product from competition. And how is really and what is marketing, right? So in the product era, as I would define it, everything was really product oriented and information oriented. So very organic, very tactical. Just the product is this car is available in black or white, and that's how that era was. It was like production oriented, very rational, very black and white. Yeah. So then we move on to what we call the sales era. So, you suddenly saw sales tactics being used, promotions suddenly getting in, offers, so from a product era to a sales era. And then, and it's still on right now. I mean, marketing era. Now, marketing is really about adding that, the belief system over a product and sales. So just in your head, so see it as subsets, okay? And that's how you're gonna look at your marketing strategies. So product information, product literature, tactics, sales, and then you're adding a value system, belief, purpose, authentic. How are you different from competition? What's setting you apart? For example, the Nike shoes, the just do it, the tagline, the language, the image, it's making you feel, that you should start something now. Yeah, I'm just giving you that example. So, how are you different, but not just rational, but something beyond the emotional push that a brand kind of starts getting. And then, you really talk about experience being marketing. And a lot of marketers today, hold portfolios of a chief customer officer. So while you're taking care of marketing, it's also experience, because in today's world, and I say many times that you had journalists and you had media people who would report what went wrong, but today every consumer is a journalist, right? Every touch point is a marketing impact point. Every consumer experience, how the call center person picks up the phone, how the call center engages with the brand, that's marketing, and that's the experience era. So we are really in an experience era where we need to start building memorable customer experiences, memorable, consistent customer experiences, and of course we need to market that, promote that, and you have the core product. So it's really about bringing all this together. But I think this concept will help you kind of think about it in a little different way, and how it has really evolved over time. Yeah, so do share some experiences that you have or some campaigns that you've done, which kind of bring this together, where you've been able to talk about an experience, positioning, some kind of a tactic and a basic core product. Yeah. So how have you been able to package this together? Okay, let's move to the next section. Next slide. Yeah, I'm just going to touch upon this topic. So I think we're running a little out of time. So I'm going to take just 2 more minutes and we'll wind up and open it for Q&A. So, while you're talking about timeless marketing, a lot of us are now in this, you have to, talk about the marketing funnel from awareness, interest, desire, action, and various other methods. Yeah, but in India, really, if you're creating, and Amul is a brand, Nestle, all these brands, you're creating for a market which is so diverse. Yeah, and really, how do you, how a consumer in a tier 2 town, in a metro, they're coming from different cultural experiences, but at the end of it, the values are consistent. So again, when you're able to kind of nail it to the core value, you're able to then able to your communication could be different. So when you're communicating in different languages, but your core is the same. So many people nowadays are also kind of writing a script, or the whole story could be completely different. So let me give you an example of what I worked on, and I find it a great example. There's a brand that I handled called Eno, a GSK brand at some point of time at Ogilvy. So how Eno campaign was done in the East and the inside. So they all talked about, what happened during a wedding. So the films always was, a wedding situation. So an East wedding and a South wedding, and something that happens there. And who are the people who influence the purchase of the product? It could be the mother-in-law, it could be the uncle. Really small nuances, but you have a format, but the culture starts defining how your brand is, while it's consistent, it's also relatable. Yeah, so very precise. You have a formula, you have a value system, but at the same time, you're able to kind of create for that particular market. So you're consistent, but your communication is different. Yeah, I think that's the beauty of such examples and experiences. We'll move to the next slide. Yeah, so talking about it, we've spoken about it before too, and I think somebody talked about it in the chat too. In today's customer experience era, a consumer is not just, earlier you would say that, your consumer comes to your website or the person buys it. So you have an offline, online experience, you have a store experience. It's an omni-channel, omnipresent consumer. He might WhatsApp you, he'll call your call center. She will, go to the store to buy. So you have multiple touch points, multiple channels, and the consumer is actually playing across those channels. So it's not a linear system. So I think it's very important to kind of understand that and how do you create for that. And I mean, many brands are still working that out. Yeah, because it's changing very fluidly, right? Pepper Fry, IKEA, good examples, omni-channel, right? And how they are able to bring a consistency at that channel level. I think those are beautiful stories to learn. So please do read about these case studies. I think they're good examples. IKEA is a great example again. So read more about that, make a note of that and read on that example. I could share some with you too, but that's a great example. Thank you for that. Yeah. So so how do you, and again, knowing your consumer will help you be able to stitch this journey. So what we call these are like consumer journeys. How do you kind of stitch this consumer journey? What is the kind of messaging at what point of the consumer journey? Again, being, keeping your core intact, keeping that brand print on your desk and able to create and stitch these journeys. Yeah, so that's a lot of exciting work that one can do in marketing. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so another topic really is that today again between short term and long term. Another way to really look at this is brand or perform brand marketing or performance marketing. So we know many times in a situation, and I can show you many personal examples here. You need to kind of everything needs to be have an ROI. So when you're doing a brand investment, what's the kind of ROI that's expected from your CFO or your management team? Digital marketing and performance marketing, definitely help you with stronger ROI narratives. Yeah, very easy to kind of say, okay, this was my cost of acquisition, the number of leads that I got with this campaign. I impacted the reach of so many people, and so on and so on. So reach, of course, is a brand KPI, but performance is you're able to kind of relate it very easily with the final output. Brand, it takes much more longer term. So in my mind, and many times you have spends which are divided, but I really feel, and I mean, there are many studies towards this that I'm kind of doing, and if I had to do some research, I think this will be a topic that I will kind of spend more time on, is how you can really stitch together a brand and a performance marketing strategy. I think they're not really differentiated. So brand and performance needs to go together. Both need to work together. Brand needs performance and performance needs brand. Yeah, so you can't just kind of spend time on one and not do the other because it won't give you a long-term advantage. At the same time, you can't spend on brand and just say, okay, I'm going to get an advantage of it next year. No, you have to contribute to the bottom line this year. So, it's being very idealistic if you say, okay, there's not going to be an ROI on this investment. So how do you stitch together the two? How do what's the combination that you use which helps you satisfy the needs of the consumers and also add to the bottom line? How do you earn the trust and loyalty, but also drive business and growth? Yeah, so that's another kind of a strategy. And again, it comes into between doing a time, long-term strategy along with short-term brand tactics. And how do you really stitch the two? Yeah, next slide. So I think this is largely a kind of a sum up for many of you who are, either in marketing or going to be stepping into marketing careers. What are the 5 things I would kind of want to leave you with to build, enduring marketing leadership strategies? One is, of course, a consumer-centric approach. Know your customer and do it constantly. Keep learning, keep understanding your core TG, how they're evolving, what are the thought processes. Be there as part of their lives. Don't just sit behind your laptop and behind the screens, but be there in person. Okay, I think the other one is experimentation, innovation, and adaptation. Very critical for today's marketers. There's lots happening with AI, with data, which with new techniques, new platforms coming up. and how are you going to be able to innovate and adapt to those platforms? I would again stress, because my core has been, a strong brand experience, and I do believe, a strong brand identity, strong purpose-driven brands, really outlive a lot of. Cadbury has been a brand that I've handled. Asian Paints is a brand that I've worked on. And I've seen how, being strong and the value system and everything that you do, the culture of that brand really starts paying off. And it starts with having a brand vision, an organization vision right to the top, really uh, coming from the top down, how brand is seen in the boardroom, what's the kind of identity that the brand brings on the table. Very important in today's day and age is to be data driven, analytical, bring that into the business, and ultimately learn from each other and partner teams. So a marketing person should today be able to influence other teams, influence how the brand is being perceived at the touch points, and bring that to life. So how do you collaborate? How do you, make that part of the culture? So I think I would just like to leave you behind with these 5 points. Next slide. I think that's yeah. So thank you so much. Thanks. It's been. I hope you have picked up, some nuggets here. And I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to continuing to engage with you. Thank you so much for attending. Dr. Nagendra, thank you.
Thank you, Sapna. I think there's one question from why. I think one of them. Just give me a moment. There's one very interesting question from Vaidehi. I think she's referring to one of the slides that you made, right? I just try to put that slide. Just give me 1 second.
Sure, sure. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, her question, I think, related largely to this question. Vaidehi, please let me know if I'm right. Her question is, how do we replicate these principles to create a brand for a service? Thank you, Vaidehi.
Sure, sure. So, Vaidehi, thanks for the question. And most of the brands that I have actually handled have been service brands. I worked in telecom, I worked in education, and I worked in BFSI. While in core capacities as leading the brand. And while I was in Ogilvy, I worked on a lot of FMCG brands, which is Asian Paints and HUL brands, and Amex. Of course, that's BFSI. So, that slide, if you want to go back, it's really still about, the principles are mostly consistent. So, knowing your customer, being genuine and authentic is as important in a service brand as in a product based brand. Focusing on the big picture, again, same in a service or a product. Storytelling, I think it's all very similar. I think the difference is, if I have to tell you, between a product, FMCG kind of a durable brand, and a service brand, the service brands have a lot more focus on the experience and the touch points. In a product, maybe to an extent, you define the product and you place the product on the shelf. You don't have the call center, the service center, the website. For example, in insurance, our experience also depends on our intermediaries and our hospital networks. So those are the extended arms in service marketing, where and I would call that the same as retail. So service retail, very important to have a 360 kind of a vision with a durable product. You have a product that you're kind of, maybe you would spend more time on that than talk about the holistic experience that a customer is getting. I hope I answered that question for you, Vaidehi, but principles largely same. It's how you adapt it across the two narratives that you have to do.
Thank you, Sapna. This is a question from Mr. Balaji Naika, and his question is, I'm switching over from operations to sales and marketing now. What is your guidance and tip for me to succeed in this switchover? I'm looking forward to be an emerging marketer. Thank you, Balaji, and all the best.
Yes, Balaji, all the best to you. And actually, Balaji, I think you have a great advantage, if I have to kind of talk to you, that you have a sales experience first and an operations experience too, because you know what is needed on ground, and you know how you can impact, on service and operate, and you know what can go wrong. So you will be able to predict a lot of things, in advance. I think it's a great advantage in the first place. But if I have to tell you what experience is, that start focusing, on competition, on the consumer, a little bit more on the whole creative storytelling part of it. I don't know how much of it you do or you don't do, but that part of it would be something that you could focus on, because you already understand the business, you understand the sales, which is very, maybe more than 50-60% of your work done. But on the other part, you would be able to then now kind of step into how do you tell that story in the market. How do you kind of bring that alive for your consumers and your other sales channels, and how do you create that consistency in delivery of the service on ground. So I think those will be the 3-4 areas that you would probably have to learn more on. But overall, I think you're starting on a good track. All the best to you.
Thank you, Sapna. We have in fact, questions from Mr. Alok Goshal, and both of them relate to, I think, some very interesting suggestions from you. One is that he's asking, can you please suggest some books for reading? That's one question that he has. Second one is, can you please suggest some courses that will empower me? Thank you, Alok.
Sorry, I missed the second question.
Can you please suggest some courses that will empower me?
Sorry, the voice is breaking, Dr. Narendra, for some reason.
Can you please suggest some courses that empower me?
Courses. Okay, courses and books. Okay, yeah. So, one very book that has always stood test of time for me has been The Art of Influence. Yeah, so do check that out, pick it up, read it. There are many marketing books, and not only books, there are many marketing blogs that you could just check and read. The thing with marketing now is that it's become so diverse. There's not just one book. So, like if you want to learn on digital, and I constantly do that, right? So I'm constantly reading. I think I'm reading a lot of blogs these days, people that I follow. And that would be something that I would text you. Do feel free to just write to me on LinkedIn or something, and I will send you some of these links. And in terms of courses, again, I think there are. And I think Dr. Najendra, you could guide the team more too. But I think there is a lot available nowadays on Coursera, Udemy, and especially in the field of content marketing or digital marketing. There's a lot, but I think marketing also these days, it's very important to be able to apply those learnings. So when you have a framework and when you're doing something, many times what we tend to do is, just get into the flow of it. But if you've read something and you've seen a framework somewhere, go back, open that framework, go back to your team and say, you know what, I'm going to try this in another way. Can we just step back? It'll require a little more effort from your end, but you will be able to contribute more. Yeah, Philip Kotler is like a Bible, but I thought that will become a BAU or basic. I heard somebody say that, but yeah, but there is a lot more today that you could read about in marketing. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sapna. This is a question from Mr. Abhinav Singh. His question is, hi, ma'am. As you have an experience of BFSI, post-pandemic, all insurance companies are able to sell or missell the products and policies anyhow, ethical or unethical promises. Would like to know how to manage that.
Dr. Nagendra, could you just repeat that question?
His question is, largely related to the BFSI, especially insurance companies. And, post-pandemic, what he's saying is that, a lot of these companies have indulged in selling or indulging in ethical or unethical, selling kind of it, or mis-selling, as you might call it. So how would you like to manage that?
Okay, so see, actually, I'm just trying to figure out the post-pandemic and mis-selling, because mis-selling existed even pre-pandemic. So overall, I'm just trying to get that question. But let me step back a bit. I think what's one thing is that after post-pandemic, I think I've been in the sector for a while. now, especially in the last 1 decade, I've been part of the health insurance sector. So pandemic has been very closely connected. So before the pandemic, we had a lot of disbelief, or it's not necessary. Health insurance is not a necessity. It's just for tax saving. It's a waste of money. If I don't fall sick, I will have to lose that money. We had a lot of those issues to deal with, and many brands were actually selling the category more than the brand, because you had to start there, right? You had to start with saying, why is health insurance important? Why is important to make sure that you have this product? So category selling. But post pandemic, I think everybody now realizes that health insurance, or even insurance overall, is now a necessity. Yeah, so I think that's been a shift that's come pre and post pandemic. Again, I think in the BFSI category was a second shift that I can see, is that post pandemic, people have become very tuned to digital methods of buying, selling, and usage. So while the digital technology existed, I think consumers have become more fluid with using, and the usage has improved. So I think these are the two key things, pre and post. Now, I think your question on ethical and mis-selling, really, and coming from insurance. See, the insurance industry, if you realize, is based on a lot of intermediaries, and I'm assuming you are from the BFSI sector, so hence the question. You are selling through your agents, you're selling through your brokers, and you're selling through various bank partners, and so on, and you have a system of commission that you're giving to your intermediaries. And so, how do you really manage that? I think a lot of that management, especially again talking about the brand that I work for, comes from the shareholders and how they are seeing the business. Is it for the short term? Are you pursuing a short term growth goal, or as in the organization that I work for, you're pursuing a profitability long term goal? So now those two things will dictate how you're running your business, and then that will narrate how you're going on ground. So for example, like if I mean, I don't want to really make this a person, but if your goal is really to be seen as the best in customer experience, we want to value all claims, so you will take your time and do the right underwriting at start, and not reject a claim during when you have to pay it out. So these are philosophies that a business really has, and based on that, you're able to cut the mis-selling, or minimize the mis-selling, because that's not what you advocate in the first place. So I think that's an answer to that question.
Great. So we have, maybe with your permission, because we already 15 minutes past 7 o'clock, Sapna. So with your permission, I'll take one last question, if that's okay with you.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Yeah. This is a question from Mr. Akash Verma. His question is, ma'am, how important is the customer segmentation? Is customer segmentation important in all marketing aspects? Thank you, Akash.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, customer segmentation has always been important, and I think it's what's happening is that it's becoming more useful. So if I have to talk to you again from practical experiences, you've been able to doing customer segmentation studies, and from a long time. What now you are able to do is actually start using those studies to define that audience, to have media that kind of reaches to that audience, to be able to study through data how the behavior of that audience is, and then further customize your offering. So customer segmentation, if you're able to really identify, can add a big difference to your brand business strategy, actually, not only brand strategy. Customer segmentation becomes part of your overall customer proposition, your business outreach, maybe even your sales outreach. So for example, a brand wants to say talk to women in the age group of X and Y, or you want to talk to a geographic kind of a segment, or now you can even talk to people, the whole look-alike affinity segment. So yes, I think very important, but I think the question is, how do you use the segmentation, and how do you apply it to add value to your business? So I think that's where the focus area is important to be.
Thank you so much, Sapna, and sorry for taking a little extra time, but
It's my pleasure.
Absolute
Thanks
pleasure.
everyone for the engaging time. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Dr. Nagendra, and the TimesPro team. It's been a pleasure Thanks for inviting me, and thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Appreciate your time, especially on Saturday evening. But more than anything else, I think the kind of timeless principle that you have shared with all of us. I'm sure everyone would be picking up these nuggets of wisdom and trying to articulate their own timeless principles for their own brands or the company that they work for. Thank you once again from all of us, and look forward to hosting you sometime soon for another deep and engaging session. Sapna, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you so much. Have
Thank
a
you.
nice evening and a nice weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.